On Thanksgiving Eve, welcome. Hope you're not stuck in traffic. Bad day in the nation's capital. Minutes ago, a shooting took place at Farragut Square, which is about a mile from the White House. So it's not outside the White House. It's at 17th and I, not far from where the fetching Hugh used to work for the American Society of Association Executives. We're getting bits and pieces of news, and first reports are always incomplete. But here is what Sandra Smith, very fine newswoman, had to say over at Fox as America Reports was wrapping up their program.
All right, Fox News alert. This is breaking right now. We can confirm now 2 National Guard troops have been shot in Washington near the White House is what we are told. We do not know about their conditions at this time. We are just starting to get brand new details, but we can confirm 2 military personnel have been shot near the White House. Paul Morrow is joining us by phone. He's a retired NYPD inspector. Paul,
right,
we're
so
just starting to get details here.
Take more speculation. X is full of it in terms of speculation, not full of nonsense. It's just got full of speculation and lots of clips. The early reports are multiple people were shot, including 2 National Guardsmen. Don't have any idea or confirmation on their condition, and it's remarkable that there's just no reporting of it anywhere other than X, which goes to show that old media is still pretty old media. But I'll keep you posted on what we learn throughout the afternoon as details become available. Let's begin with reminding you that this is the night before Thanksgiving. No matter how bad the news is in Washington, D.C. from this tragedy, I'd like you to think about children whose mom and dad are in jail today. And as you're driving somewhere, think about making their Christmas possible with the donation to the Angel Tree annual campaign at Christmas to connect moms and dads with their children at home. Get them a present, get them a Bible, get them connected up with an Angel Tree ministry near them, and a note from mom or dad saying, this is from me, this is for you, I love you, and I'm thinking of you. Give a listen to what Troy Miller, president of the National Religious Broadcasters Association, says about the fact that Christians always step up to help the needy, and especially this population this time of year.
We have behind that not just an obligation to do it, but a true love for our neighbors and for our fellow people around the community, because it is us being light in the culture and to really spread the gospel. What a better witness we can be than just to reach out and help those people. And a lot of times I've had people do it anonymously too. It's just a great thing that we can do as Christians.
Something you can do in the car, in fact, if you're stuck in traffic right now, you can talk about with your kids why some children don't have moms and dads, the choices that they made, and how you're going to help them as well as help your children learn how to give. Again, the website, HughHewitt.com, has a banner at the very top. Or you can call, hands-free, please. Don't use your device while driving. 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. Let me also remind you that we will feast tomorrow and give thanks tomorrow, and on Friday, most Americans will shop. That's when the cyber criminals come out. That's the time they know. It's the biggest shopping, it's the hurried shopping, it's the Black Friday specials. So I want to tell you about webroot.com/Hewitt. Webroot.com/Hewitt. They're running a special through the end of the week, 75% off Webroot Total Protection. Cybercrime does go up during the holidays, especially Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And falling victim to a scam is the last thing anyone needs for the holidays. So protect yourself and your family with Webroot Total Protection. All you need is webroot.com/Hewitt to get 75% off. Don't wait for the identity thieves to make off with your identity or drain your bank account. Don't wait for something to go wrong. Get protected. With my exclusive discount, Webroot Total Protection is less than $50 for the whole year. All-in-one protection. Devices, identity, privacy, even backup of all your data for under $50. Peace of mind for $50. The best gift you can give yourself. Let's go to webroot.com, 75% off. It might be the second best gift you can give yourself. I like webroot.com/Hewitt, 75% off. But I think probably the best gift you can give yourself is besthotgrill.com. I'm running through all the gifts right at the top here because you're in the car and you're thinking about, what am I doing? Why am I in the car? Well, start thinking about shopping. and actually give some thought to what you're going to give to your family, your friends, and your clients. And think about besthotgrill.com. Right now through December 5th, they are offering a 25% discount off their Solaire Anywhere and Solaire Everywhere portable infrared grill. Perfect gift for a college student, a tailgater, a boater, an RV, a picnicker, any kind of foodie. Likes to make it in the great outdoors. Fire up the grill, the Barbie. Fire up the Solaire infrared grill. Best grill made anywhere, but of course it is made in America. And through December 5, if you purchase the 27-inch or larger grill, you'll get a free stainless steel griddle and a quality USA-made cover to protect your investment. That's a $650 value. And that griddle allows you to do pizza and smash burgers and fajita and all the kind of things that kitchen-grade griddles allow you to do. Fits perfectly in the Solaire infrared grill. So don't wait another day. Solaire infrared grills are on sale through December 5th at besthotgrill.com. That's besthotgrill.com. Donald Trump was traveling today on Air Force One. Let's give a listen to what the president had to say. Cut number one, dispelling one rumor.
Are you planning to replace Kash Patel as
No, he's doing a good job.
This week?
Cash Patel? No, he's doing a great job, I think.
And then, cut number two on Air Force Two, on Air Force One.
What about security guarantees and Ukraine?
Well, we're working that out with Europe. Europe will be largely involved in that. We're working that out with Europe.
And
Europe really wants to see it end if possible.
there were a lot of Republicans who felt that the first 28-point plan was too favorable to Russia. Have you changed
Well,
that?
that was just a map. All that was is a map. That was not a plan. It was a concept. And from there, they've taken each one of the 28 points, and then you got down to 22 points. A lot of them were solved, and actually very favorably solved. So we'll see what happens.
I'm still not commenting on that until after we see what the final product is, if in fact there is a final product, because it's silly to talk about diplomacy that's being made. Don't want to see the sausage. I want how it's made. I want to see the sausage at the end. Meanwhile, the vice president is at Fort Campbell today serving food to the family. The entire Vance family is with him. Cut number 4.
Anything else? She's insisted that you make her butter. She takes her job very seriously. Thank you, man.
They kind of know what's going on, and she's holding up slabs of butter. It's very, very funny and very, very cute. Good for the Vance family to be down there with the troops at Fort Campbell today. Now, Frank Luntz on C-SPAN spoke truth about the idiots who made that dumb video last week about don't follow illegal orders. Cut number 3.
My first reaction was, why the hell did you put this video out? I know you're trying to poke at him. Of course you don't obey an illegal order. Of course there are standards and processes that our military has followed, not just for decades, but for centuries. That's a given. You're doing this just to create a political issue. And shame on you, because there are men and women who are serving in Japan, in Korea, all over the globe, in the Middle East, in other Asian countries. And this is Thanksgiving. And they're not home. And they're sacrificing for this country. And you're playing politics at this point?
Good for you, Frank. Well said. Next week, by the way, I'll be in Fort Worth, Texas. If you would like to come and watch the broadcast, tickets are available. I'm at the American Legislative Exchange Council. Dwayne is coming over from California. I'm coming from the Beltway. And 1,000 state legislators are coming from around the country to hammer out policy ideas and details on things like school choice, lower taxes, compacts between the states on how to get progress made on various difficult issues that have proven intractable over the decades. They get done at ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. Election reform, laws that can be agreed, bipartisan organization, not Republicans, not Democrat. It's there for you, but you got to buy a ticket if you want to come see the program when we broadcast on Tuesday and Wednesday from Fort Worth next week. Head over to alec.org/U. American Legislative Exchange Council is ALEC, ALEC.org/U. Jonathan Williams will be there. Everyone will be there. Lisa Nelson, all my friends from ALEC, Senator Rucker from West Virginia. Hope we get Danny Perez from Florida in. I got some reliables that usually make for great radio when they show up. During the break, I'll check the wires on the shooting in downtown D.C. to find out if we have any additional details that I can relay to you with certainty. Farragut Square is about a mile away from the White House, so it's not a threat to the White House. The White House is not under attack. But I'll bring you up to speed, updating you on the breaking news from Washington, D.C. 2 National Guardsmen have been shot, and a suspect has also been shot at Farragut Square, which is about a mile from the White House as the crow flies. We'll bring you details. There's no other details yet on their condition or the condition of the suspect. We will bring that to you as it comes in. I'm joined by Danny Pletka, fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Danny, of course, it's always upsetting to hear about crime in the middle of the afternoon, a mile from the White House, but I guess I'm not surprised by much anymore, are you?
No, look, Washington has become, I mean, I've lived here for almost 40 years. Washington used to be very, very dangerous when I moved here, and it gradually improved. And over the last few years, it's been declining. Carjacking, assaults, murders, really, really depressing and frightening, frankly.
What I know about Farragut Square is that it's just a giant homeless encampment right now. And the last time I was there was probably 2 months ago. What?
It's not anymore, Hugh. It's been cleared out. So remember when the National Guard came, one of the things they did was they cleared out the homeless encampments near the Department of State down by Virginia Avenue and the ones nearer to the White House, also in Farragut Square. So while people do come back and try to squat there, it's not actually a homeless encampment in the same way that it was a few months ago because the National Guard cleared it out. People are really grateful for what these men and women have done for us, because Washington is now a much safer place.
Well, we will bring details on that. That's very, very tragic that they'd actually done their job and somehow they end up in a gunfight. We'll tell you that as we learn about it. Danny, I wanted to talk to you about your impressions of what's going on with the Russia-Ukraine, United States talks, the mediation, the leaks. I really don't have an opinion because diplomacy, like sausage, is best seen at the end, not during the making.
You are completely right about that. It's not a pretty picture. Look, what we know is pretty complicated. I've been sort of closely involved with and talking to various people who are even more closely involved. The way this started was a 28-point proposal that, frankly, I'll tell you, I don't even know the president ever saw. The State Department clearly believed that it originated from the Kremlin. That's what Marco Rubio told members of Congress, even though he subsequently denied it. Even so, it was a starting point, and they continued discussing it, and all reports are that our negotiators and the Ukrainian negotiators have come to an agreement. But we've sent the Secretary of the Army, don't ask me why, other than that he's a good mate of J.D. Vance's, to the United Arab Emirates to meet with the Russians. The Russians didn't like the 28-point plan that looked like it had been written in the Kremlin. There's no chance they're going to like the 19-point plan that was written with the Ukrainian input. So that's the state of affairs right now, and I gather, based on leaks, as you mentioned, that Vladimir Putin is going to try and call the president at some point this week to try to make his case.
Do you know, Danny, it would be very old school KGB to invent a peace plan, leak it, have our team get all spun up about it, and then reject it out of hand. That would be very old school Soviet, wouldn't it?
Oh, so right. And you do, right. You need that historical perspective. This is exactly the stuff of sort of cloak and dagger 1960s films and frankly, KGB operations. And of course, we know that Vladimir Putin is a veteran of that world. So it wouldn't surprise me one bit that it happened exactly as you described. I think the biggest question here is, who is the dupe?
Yeah, well, the idea that if we've come to an agreement on what Ukraine would accept and we don't budge from it, then the Russians are the dupes because they didn't get what they want, which is a high-fi. I would guess they would want another fight between Zelensky and Trump, right? They would want to be able to telegraph to their people a Western alliance that is fraying. But if that's not what's happened, then they lose. But then they'll have deniability because we don't know where the 28 points came from. It's kind of a weird spy meets spy from Mad Magazine days.
It is a little bit like that. And I think that, I think that where we end up is in a stalemate because the Russians are not going to end their war against Ukraine unless they get what they seek, and that is territorial acquisitions, including territory they have not conquered militarily. I can't see the Ukrainians giving up territory that Russia hasn't conquered militarily for a very simple reason. And Hugh, Kim Kagan's work in the Institute for the Study of War and our own Fred Kagan, they have a very, very useful set of maps that gives you an idea of just how important that territory in the Donbass is, that in Donetsk, that the Russians really want and are trying to get the Americans to force the Ukrainians to hand over. It's the pathway to the rest of Ukraine once they rest and restart this war once Donald Trump is gone. So I see this ending nowhere.
Now, I said this yesterday. The analogy is too perfect, but I'll use it anyway. When Hitler browbeat Chamberlain into the Munich Accord, he got the fortresses on the Czechoslovakia-Germany border, and he said he would be done. And then 4 months later, he moved on the rest of Czechoslovakia. It's not like we haven't seen this movie before. They're not going to give up their fortress line, and nor should we ever even think about forcing them to. And I don't think we have. I don't think we would do that. Not this team. Not Marco Rubio. I don't believe it.
I hope you're right. For those who, and I don't know whether you've talked about this yet on your show, but for those who did read the transcript of this leaked call between Ushakov, the most senior foreign policy advisor to Vladimir Putin, and Steve Witkoff, who's the president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff seemed to insinuate that he was fine with pushing the Ukrainians to give all of Donetsk, and we know that is not going to be okay. That's exactly the analogy you describe. It's not a barrier to war. It's not a ceasefire. It's a pathway to more war.
Yeah, Danny, on a bigger, larger question, I'm going to talk about this in the second hour. So much of the bad policy that we have these days and the bad commentary comes from people who don't know anything. I don't know if they've read a book. You know, our fringe extremists on the left and the right, do you think they've ever read a book? I'm doing a week-by-week read through the Churchill World War II memoirs with Dr. Arne of Hillsdale, just so that people actually know what happened, because people don't know what happened anymore.
That you couldn't be more right. When I was a little girl with my parents, I watched a series narrated by Laurence Olivier called The World at War. And, it was one of the things that informed my interest in history, but it also gives you a sense of perspective. If you are constantly surprised by how our enemies and our adversaries act, if you don't know how appeasement works, if you don't know how tyrants like Hitler, like Putin, like Khamenei, like Xi Jinping, if you don't know how they work, then of course you're going to be taken in by them. And that includes, whether it's on the left, whether it's the Mamdanis of this world or it's the Tucker Carlsons of this world.
It doesn't matter. If you don't know anything, you're a sucker. You're a sucker waiting to be taken. And that's why, boy, those statistics out of UC, California, San Diego about math were so stunning. I bet they're worse on history, Danny. Don't you think they're worse on history?
Are you kidding? Did you see Hugh, the interview with an Israeli influencer was entering Canada, and he said they asked him why he was there. He said he was going to meet with Holocaust survivors, and the guy said, "What's that?"
I didn't see that. I'm not surprised. I'm saddened, but I didn't see it. Danny Pletka from AEI. Thank you, Danny. I'll bring you details from Washington, D.C. as they arrive. President Trump has tweeted out that they will stop at nothing to find the people who shot the National Guardsman earlier today. I still don't have a confirmed report on their condition or on the suspect. I'm waiting again. It takes time, and the authorities, the last thing they worry about with an active shooter is telling the newspapers what they know about. But I'll tell you as soon as I know something. In the meantime, let me tell you about Consumer Cellular, because I want to save you money in this holiday season. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh, 1-800-411-4454. Either way, remember my code is Hugh25. Either way, meaning you can go online, ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh, or you can call 1-800-411-4454. If you call 1-800-411-4454, Say Hugh25 is my code. I'd like $5 off each of my first 5-month bills, regardless of what we come up with. And if you go to consumercellular.org/Hugh, there'll be a place for you to enter the code Hugh25, promotional code. Now, here's the deal. You're paying too much for your cellular service. Consumer Cellular, you can have savings without sacrificing the quality of your cell phone because it's the same as all the big cell carriers. They just don't oversell you. They do not upsell you. Especially if you're 50 years and older, you're almost certainly buying too much data. And you don't want to buy too much data anymore. You want to buy as little data as you need. But some of you won't be persuaded. You'll be worried about, oh dear, I'll get a bill for $500 some month when I'm not expecting it because I left my phone on. That doesn't happen, but you can get an unlimited data plan if you're 50 years and older. 2 lines, $60. Unlimited data, same number, same data, keep your contacts, takes 20 minutes to switch. Save the money. Save the money. It's like when you go through Medicare every year and you say, wow, I'm saving $100 a month. That's not nothing. $1,200 a year. If you can save $50 a month on your cell phone bill, why wouldn't you do that? That adds up. If you do it on everything, on every platform that you buy, on everything that you rent, if you just do small things, it adds up. Well, one small thing is you get great cell service and you save money, especially if you're 50 and older, with consumercellular.com/Hugh, 1-800-411-4454. Generalissimo, myphdweightloss.com does not save anyone money. It just I guess it does. It saves you health bills, right?
It saves you health bills, and it saves you whatever the shot fee is for the rest of your life.
Well, if you're it's going to save you a lot of money if you get the fat shot,
right?
Because that's for the rest of your life. But if you do myphdweightloss.com, you can lose 50 pounds in 3 months, like Dwayne did. Keep almost all of it off, and then lose what you want to lose when you want to lose it in advance of feasting, like tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Now, will you go off the MyPhD weight loss program tomorrow?
I doubt it. I'll stick to mostly proteins and limited vegetables that I can actually like.
Is cranberry sauce on the You told me yams are not included, but what about cranberry sauce?
I will probably have a smidgen of it. It's pretty high in sugar, but I'll have a little bit of it, maybe.
Mashed potatoes are not on the list, are they?
I treat cranberry sauce like the troops should have treated the butter handed out by J.D. Vance's daughter.
Yeah, very, very rarely. But what about the mashed potatoes? They're not on myphdweightloss.com.
Absolutely not. Yeah, no. Absolutely not.
Because you can have as much turkey as you want.
As much turkey and then some, yes.
How about corn?
No.
No?
No.
What veggies are allowed?
Green beans in small doses. There's a lot of leafy green stuff, which I could kind of do without. Broccoli, zucchini, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so there's stuff. There's stuff available. Call
864-644-1900
to find out. That's
864-644-1900.
By Christmas, you can be down 15 pounds, maybe 20 if you go at it really hard.
Depends how disciplined you are. Yeah.
Yep. It's a good 5 weeks away. You can lose 3 pounds a week with myphdweightloss.com and not pay for the shot. Let me finally tell you that Americans for Free Markets, forfreemarkets.org, forfreemarkets.org, they are working hard on legislation to make sure President Trump's executive order banning debanking becomes law. We do not want that ever to return. It came under Obama, where some banks would deny service to unfavored political causes and people. Then it spread under Biden. It ended under Trump, too. And now we want to codify that free markets mean banks for everyone except criminals. All right? That you don't get to stop banking someone because you don't like their politics. If you believe in that, in free enterprise and a free banking system, go to forfreemarkets.org. That's FOR, freemarkets.org. Americans for Free Markets sponsors forfreemarkets.org. And I hope you will sign up and join the cause. It is Thanksgiving Eve, and some of you are driving home to Nashville. I want to remind you that if you are a Nashvillian, there's a special election on Tuesday. and Matt Van Epps is the Republican nominee, and he should win handily. It's a Republican district. Donald Trump carried it. But the Democrats have decided to throw the long ball. They're running a nut. Afton Bend, right, the deep red district, it stretches west from Nashville and would normally be an unlikely Democratic pickup. But national Democrats are watching the Tennessee 7th race closely. Now, they do this every race, right? They thought they were going to beat Susan Collins 6 years ago, and she won by 10 points. So they gin up. It's a way of raising money because they keep a slice of whatever you give to Afton Bend. But Afton Bend, some oppo has dropped on her now. Here is Afton Bend, cut number 6.
And I think, especially as someone who is more secular, I have a hard time when religion is at the core of everything we do in the legislature. And so, for example, on the House floor, we say a prayer every session. Some committees open up with prayer. We also stand for the pledge. And there are also prayer groups in the legislature that meet routinely. There are Christian pastors that have a lot of say and proximity to power in the legislature and dictate a lot of what the power players do. And it is uncomfortable.
I have no idea what she's talking about. I think she's hallucinating about pastors in the legislature. Maybe she's talking about the Tennessee legislature, but I think that's crazy too. She's running for the Congress, all right? But Afton, the RNC dropped an ad on her today, cut number 9.
Afton Bain here. Many of you have been part of my story.
I was someone who always wanted to get out of East Tennessee.
Let's show the entire country
what police abolition looks like, that, we can do it.
I took that fight statewide
for bullying the ICE vehicles and state troopers.
Now I'm running for Congress because
I hate the city.
As a state representative in Tennessee,
I don't want children, I want power.
I'm Afton Bain.
I hate all of the things that make Nashville, apparently.
She hates country music. She does. Afton Bend running. So Matt Van Epps has run a very low-key campaign because it's a deep red district. And all of a sudden we're seeing the Blues trying to get the Blue kids to turn out and the Blues to move to Nashville and vote. I don't know what they're trying to do. But if you are going home for the holidays, remind everyone in the Nashville area, it's the 7th Congressional District. Vote for Matt Van Epps. Don't fool around by sending another nut to Congress. We got too many marginal people in Congress. Now, there's a bell curve and everything. I'm going to talk about this next hour with Jordan Hirsch, who has written a great piece for the Sapir Journal on whether or not American Jewry ought to stop supporting the institutions they've always supported and enter into a sovereign wealth fund of American Jewish money into American institutions that are, in fact, standing strong for free enterprise and freedom of religion and other things like that, and not keep giving money to anti-Semitic hothouses. We'll talk with Jordan about that next hour. But here is Tony Dokapil on the CBS Early Show talking about why we ought not to worry too much about colleges because they're going to fall apart pretty soon. Cut number 8.
I got an interesting one. My talk at the table. Ford Motor Company CEO Jim Farley saying they have 5,000 mechanic jobs that pay $120,000 a year, and they cannot find enough skilled people to fill those jobs. But he also points out this is not just about Ford. Quote, "We are in trouble in our country," he told the Business Podcast last week. "We have over 1 million openings in critical jobs, emergency services, trucking, factory workers, plumbers, electricians, and tradesmen." And he added, "A bay with a lift and tools and no one to work in it? Are you kidding me? Nope." This caught my eye because, of course, I can barely build a birdhouse, and because I've covered this issue of trade school enrollment before on the show. Now, enrollment was up in the last couple of years, according to the Wall Street Journal, but there are still 10 times as many people graduating from four-year colleges than there are young people completing vocational programs. So in other words, for every trade school grad who might fill one of those jobs, there are 10 college grads now competing with AI. And it's not just Ford that's noticed. More than 400,000 open manufacturing positions are on the books right now, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the federal government. So we are not just talking about this enough, according to Farley. And I agree.
I agree too.
This is why there are wait times for things you want to get fixed, you want to build. That's why we can't just rush ahead into the future.
Yep. Yeah. It does put things in perspective. And you're right. Most people don't know this.
AI can't actually wield a hammer. I'm kind of like AI. You don't want to give AI a hammer, and you don't want to give Hugh a hammer. It's not something that we do. Meanwhile, our favorite mayor, Karen Bass, did the off-air podcast with Big Boy, talking about the state of LA, cut number 7.
People are starting to feel, and have been feeling, that Los Angeles is just different. I've had conversations with people that left Los Angeles because of crime, left Los Angeles because they can't afford it. So what do we tell those that don't believe in politicians or believe in the mayor or the governor or a senator? Because we've heard this before.
Yeah, but you know what, though? I think that's another part of our American culture. Obviously, people in office are important, but there's no way in the world it should be viewed as the mayor, the governor, Congress is going to take care of everything. It's all of our responsibilities. So what I've always done, especially starting off as a community organizer, community activist, it's always been about community for me and getting people involved.
But she didn't say anything. So Big Boy asks her, LA is a nightmare. People are leaving. Listen to it again. Karen Bass is going to never win the spelling bee, but play it again.
People are starting to feel, and have been feeling, that Los Angeles is just different. I've had conversations with people that left Los Angeles because of crime, left Los Angeles because they can't afford it. So what do we tell those that don't believe in politicians or believe in the mayor or the governor or a senator? Because we've heard this before.
Yeah, but you know what, though? I think that's another part of our American culture. Obviously, people in office are important, but there's no way in the world it should be viewed as the mayor, the governor, Congress is going to take care of everything. It's all.
Do you understand? She's not responding to the question. I don't even know if she understood the question. You have to be kind of direct with people. People are running away because of you. Why don't you quit? That's really what you should have asked her, Big Boy.
I want to say first, before we get started, on a somber note, we had, and some of you may have seen this on your phones or on social media, but apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago. And we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out. But what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty. And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those two National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
That was J.D. Vance speaking at Fort Campbell on his way back after news of the two National Guardsmen shot at Farragut Square, which is about a mile from the White House, at 17th and I, I believe. And there's a Farragut Square Metro. We don't know any details, don't know if there's any political motive involved. We do know it's National Guardsmen who were the victim. And we'll pray for them and their families on this Thanksgiving. Coming up, I'm going to have Jordan Hirsch talking to me about this book, this new article, The Need for a Jewish Sovereign Wealth Fund in an Age of Rising Anti-Semitism. Also want to tell you one thing, andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. andrewandtodd.com have been sponsors of my program for as many Thanksgivings as I can remember, probably 13 or 14. I've been on the air for 25 years. They lend you money. They're with Union Mortgage Bank. Union Mortgage Bank lends you the money. Andrew and Todd underwrite the loan. There's no middleman. They are the lender. So they take your application, they review your credit. They help you improve your credit if they need to. They'll look at your income. They'll look at the income that you can't verify because you maybe work for yourself. They'll do everything they can to get you the best loan they can, and interest rates have been coming down. So you don't really want to wait until next year, you want to move right now. You want to call Andrew and Todd today at 888-888-1172. And they are working today. They're on the West Coast. They serve the entire United States, but they are working right now. So if you're stuck in traffic and your hands free, you can call them up and say, hey, I've been thinking about how much I hate the traffic I'm stuck in on Thanksgiving Eve, and therefore I would like to move closer to where Mom and Dad live. How much can I afford to borrow, and how much do I have to pay on that, and what's the interest rate, and what will you do when the interest rates come down? By the way, I'm a veteran. I don't want to put any money down. They'll say, great. Or I'm a first-time borrower, and they say FHA. Or if you're a senior citizen and you're really pinched this Thanksgiving, they'll do a reverse mortgage for you. AndrewandTodd.com, 888-888-1172, 888-888-1172. Do not miss it. I will continue to check on details on the shooting in D.C. on this Thanksgiving Eve. I'm thankful for your listening to me. Thank you for joining me today. Prayers for the National Guardsmen who were shot in downtown D.C. at Farragut Square, which is known to me and my guest, Jordan Hirsch, as being a place that normally you wouldn't think twice about walking through. Jordan is a senior counselor to the CEO of Palantir. The name may be familiar to you because Jordan was on just a week ago talking about Palantir's meritocracy scholarship. But in the interim, he sent me an article that he's written for the Sapir Journal, Sapir, S-A-P-I-R, which is edited by our friend Brett Stevens of the New York Times. And the article is titled The Need for a Jewish Sovereign Wealth Fund. And I read it, I inhaled it actually today when it arrived, and I put a note out to Jordan. Hey, Jordan, why don't you come on today and talk to me about this? And he was quick as a bug and said, okay, I'll do that. Let me check with the team. So let's first tell them this is a run-up to a debate. Jordan, welcome. Tell them what the debate is going to be about and how they can participate in it.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me back on, Hugh. It's a pleasure and an honor. Really appreciate it. The debate is going to be about the merits of the article, which we'll get into in a minute. It's being hosted by Sapir. Brett will be moderating, and I will be debating Roger Zakheim, who runs the Reagan Institute and Presidential Library, the institute part of that an institution, and we will be debating whether or not it's a good idea, what I propose in the article. And you can sign up by going to sapirjournal.org/events. It will be the first event there, and click on register now. That's sapirjournal.org/events, and click register now. And hopefully we'll be able to give you a good reason to come on the show and go watch the debate.
Now, Jordan, I want to start by, I have a lot of knowledge that is not been put into evidence yet because I listen to the Commentary podcast every day. And they have had a long-running debate about whether American Jewry has got to redirect their philanthropy. Bill Ackman sort of kicked this off when Harvard went off the rails, and a number of people followed it. And John Podhoretz is very, very happy to say, stop giving money to anti-Semitic institutions. Your article is the next step, and it's based upon a historical model. Can you explain the historical model and where it's failed in the past and why we ought not to just wait for it to fail in America again?
Yeah, that's a great question, Hugh. One of the questions I get a lot from friends in the conservative ecosystem who are friendly to the Jewish community in America, but they scratch their heads and they wonder, why do American Jews give to the causes and the institutions that they give to? It doesn't seem to make much sense. In fact, it seems against self-interest. And this is the reason why. This history is the reason why. The Jewish community, as many of your listeners may know, was exiled from the land of Israel and by the Romans around the year 66. And ever since then, the Jews have largely been in diaspora, meaning outside of the homeland, until, of course, 1948. And now about half the Jewish world is in Israel, and about half the Jewish world is outside of Israel. Up until 1948, the Jewish communities all around the world had to find a way to integrate with and live with the powers that be in the lands which they lived. So that could have been Spain or Italy, it could have been North Africa, it could be Poland or Germany. Interestingly enough, a very similar strategy cropped up across the Jewish world in the Middle East and in Europe, and it stretches across time, across those 2,000 years. And the concept was one known as, in Yiddish, Stadler-Nut, and that means in English, intercessor. The model involved a leading member of the Jewish community basically playing the role of communal representative to the court, whether that be the literal court or the court as we might think of it today in American politics, the powers that be in the governing class. And up until the advent of America and American democracy, that usually involved a trade-off. The intercessor would trade his skills and resources and reach in exchange for rights that were not otherwise granted to the Jewish community. So it was effectively, I will do some things for you, and you will protect the Jewish community from pogroms and anti-Semitic violence. That model prevailed for the past 2,000 years, and it was largely successful in fits and spurts throughout, except when it wasn't. And we can talk more about that in a minute. But that was effectively the survival mechanism of the Jewish community for the last 2,000 years.
Now, what I want to explain to the audience, because I'm assuming, I just talked about this with Danny Pletka, there's a general ignorance of history, and Jewish history is a subset of history, but there's a general ignorance of Jewish history from the time that the Jews lived in their native land in Jerusalem and environs, in the ancient kingdoms of Judea and Israel. They were successively taken captive and dispersed and returned and taken captive and dispersed and then returned until the Romans just burned it all down, and they went everywhere in the world except for a very small group of Jews that always remained in Jerusalem. Places that they went would receive them, like England, for a period of time, and then they would get booted out. And I mean wholesale exclusion. Or in Spain, they would be allowed to live in the Catholic country of Spain until they were obliged to leave or convert. And that's happened again and again and again. Russia was, in the late 1800s, the scene of many pogroms, which were massive and violent. And that's when Zionism became an idea. Theodore Herzl said, look, this is not going to work. We need a land of our own. And that's when Zionism began. I think the first Zionist Congress is in, 1897? And
that's right.
It takes, 1897 and 1948 to make it happen in the general decolonization effort. But Jews went back to Israel under the British mandate, even though the Brits weren't particularly good or welcoming at doing that. But here in the United States, the people that left Russia and Europe right up until World War II, they came to America when they ran into our quota system because of anti-Semites at the State Department. And what did they do in America as opposed to in England and Spain?
Yeah, great question. So what I would argue is a lot of people in the Jewish community would think we did something very different in America in terms of our relationships with the powers that be. And part of that is the blessings of American democracy, which was much less tribal, much more welcoming of different ethnic groups, and had a desire to integrate all of the people that were entering the body politic, by and large. Obviously, there were exceptions. But the Jewish community benefited enormously from that, as did other immigrant communities, Italian and Irish and what have you. But what I would argue is instead of doing something different, which would have been nice, what the Jewish community did here was reproduce the Stadtlenut model at scale. So you didn't necessarily have one person who was the intercessor on behalf of the Jewish community to the American government. But what the Jewish community did here, in order to really embed itself and show in a lot of ways that they were model Americans, was they built institutions in the Jewish community that consciously mirrored the institutions in the society around them, in American society. So, for example, you have Congress, the Jewish community develops the World Jewish Congress. You have the State Department. You have the Jewish community develops something called the American Jewish Committee, which still exists today. It sort of informally calls itself the State Department of the Jewish people. It's the diplomatic representative of the community, both within the country and abroad. And so a giant mirror imaging takes place, and the Jewish community, as part of a survival mechanism and also out of gratitude, really binds itself to the institutions that come to dominate American life throughout the mid-century period and really the golden age of American power in the world. And I think what's happening now is, as you see the breakdown in American institutions and the lack of social trust, the lack of trust in American institutions, that is having a boomerang effect on the Jewish community, which is seen by many as one of the most institutionally intertwined communities in the country. I think quite rightly, honestly, because that was part of what the community set out to do.
What is very thought-provoking about your article, and I had not considered it before, is that the alarming rise of anti-Semitism, some on the right, a lot on the left, is not so much the old anti-Semitism of the Protocols of the Elder of Zion, but the anti-establishmentarianism writ large. They're against the Jews on the fringes because the Jews are the establishment. Is that a fair summary of your thesis?
Yeah, what I would say is, look, I'm sympathetic to many in the Jewish community who have a hard time disaggregating between various kinds of anti-Jewish sentiment out there. It's very clear that there are people who suffer from what I call in the piece a kind of Jewish derangement syndrome, where they do blame everything on the Jews, and it does have the protocols flavor, and you find that on the left and on the right. But I would say what the Jewish community misses, and for reasons I'm sympathetic to, because it's very hard when this is such an emotionally charged issue and an issue of safety to get nuanced about it. They miss that there are some distinctions between the deranged, the kind of people suffering from Jewish derangement syndrome, and the people who are really skeptical of institutions as such. And they're not really skeptical or anti-Semitic in essence, but they end up in a place of questioning the role of Jews in the United States, because they look and see that Jews are very closely tied to the institutions that they distrust. I think a big part of this is that we're dealing with post-COVID hangover and distrust from what happened over the last 5 years, and that has left the Jewish community in a very precarious place, because I think the Jewish community's instinct is to seek shelter in the institutions that are themselves collapsing and causing part of this problem. So what my article is an attempt to do is really
stand
break
by,
this
Jordan.
cycle.
We'll come back with the
understand.
thesis. We'll come back with the thesis
Okay.
right after this break. During the break, the West Virginia governor, Pat Morrissey, put out a statement that both National Guardsmen were dead and then retracted it. There are conflicting reports. Continue to pray for them. There's also a report in the Wall Street Journal that the shooting took place at the junction of 17th and H Street, which is 1 block from the Capitol, not Farragut. 1 block from the White House, not Farragut Square. So again, first reports are almost always incomplete at best and usually wrong. I'll continue to wait and bring you news as it comes up. I'm back with Jordan Hirsch. He got a fabulous new article in Sapir, the Journal of Sapir, The Need for a Jewish Sovereign Wealth Fund. If I can, Jordan, I want to read 3 paragraphs. Trust in government and media is at a historic low, you write. Confidence in higher education is similarly plummeted. Almost no institution in American life remains broadly admired. Top-tier talent fled those bodies. Their husks have been occupied in many cases by second-rate, navel-gazing functionary, cosplaying radicals, and clenched-fist commissars. In turn, Americans are rejecting the collective order that governed the country for decades. Amid this decline, anti-establishment forces, podcasters, social media streamers, political brawlers have surged into the cultural mainstream. Commentators reach into a total audience, global audience, from Substacks and garage studios. Candidates win primaries with TikTok clips and Rumble shows. The anti-institutionalists hail from all sides of the political spectrum, ranging from the stoutly centrist to the proudly conspiracist, and often virulently oppose each other, but collectively they owe nothing to credentialed expert, pledge loyalty to no hierarchy, and instinctively distrust anything and anyone associated with the old line establishment. America's Jews, unapologetically identified as they have become with American social, cultural, and political norms and institutions, are the frontline targets in the assault on those same norms and institutions. As in earlier diasporas, an increase in Jew hatred is a worrisome indicator of a broader civilizational decay, and lately that decay is being intentionally accelerated by this proverbial army of anti-institutional forces, which are often, at best, indifferent to Jewish interests, if not openly hostile to them. That's provocative. It's also, I think, persuasive. I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but all of the people who have monetized their absurdity are taking aim at the same targets. That doesn't matter where they're shooting from. They're all shooting at the same targets.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem is the institutions, which are already flabby and lack self-confidence, are now getting attacked on all sides. And let's just say that they're not being run by Napoleon, who can split his forces and attack. When you're being shot at from all sides, it's very overwhelming to begin with, and you're dealing with a dispirited and demotivated class, an elite class in this country that feels maybe in a self-inflicted sort of way that it has lost its mandate. And I think into this vacuum step a whole new cluster of voices. Some of them great, by the way. Some of them more dangerous to the republic. And we're going to be dealing with the chaos of that for probably I would say the next 5 to 10 years before things start to settle out again.
Until we re-credential a serious group of people who actually earn the trust of the people with whom they are speaking. You add,
That's
to
right.
survive in this new world, we, Jews, must rid ourselves of the enmeshment currency and trade autonomy for something better, sovereignty. Explain what you mean by that, Jordan Hirsch.
Yeah, the Stadler-Newt model, which I talked about, the intercessor model, was about gaining favor with the powers that be in the land and trading something that we had to offer for their protection and their grace. My argument in this article is that in an increasingly tribal America, the Jewish community needs to show its value. It can't simply rely on loyalty and good feeling and the post-war halo, quite frankly, that existed around the Jewish community, for which we were very blessed. It now needs to show that it is going to invest in America, that it has something special to offer, and the way in which it has been allocating its resources isn't going to cut it in that regard.
How would you recommend they allocate their resources? A, collect their resources, organize their resources, and allocate their resources.
Yeah, the Jewish community's giving, by and large, has been nonprofit in focus. So that stems from the universities, where there are many endowed chairs and endowed wings and buildings, all the way down to soup kitchens. And all of that is great. This is not necessarily an argument against nonprofit giving. The Jewish community should remain as charitable as ever, and I think it's an important value. That said, I don't think it's the currency that speaks to the current moment. The currency that speaks to the current moment is authenticity. And we need to show as a community that we are going to invest in the hard power of the United States, I think, first and foremost. So what does that mean? Number one, it means investing in things that matter most to America in terms of real resources and that's really strategic. So I'm talking about making sure that the American supply chain is secure and resilient from other forces like China, Russia, Iran, et cetera, et cetera. It means investing in rare earths. It means investing in critical minerals and things of that nature. That's a very different model than the Jewish community has ever done before, at least as a collective body. Obviously, there are individual Jewish investors who invest in these things all the time. But to do it collectively and to say to the world, in a sense, that this is how we're going to do it, I think would mark an important shift. The other thing I call for is lifting the burden from asking the U.S. taxpayer to support foreign aid to Israel, which I would say is not actually a very high number if you look at it, right? But politically, I think the foreign aid in general and aid to Israel in particular has become something of an albatross. And as necessary as it is, I think there are ways that the Jewish community in America can step up to displace that and make it so that the two countries are on an equal footing and less on a client state relationship, which is, I think, what has prevailed to this point, at least over the last 20 or 30 years, which I would say has been bad for both Washington and Jerusalem in a sense.
Well, the numbers are astonishing. You cite one study between 2000 and 2015. Jewish organizations donated more than $46 billion to charitable organizations in the United States. According to historian Jack Wertheimer, Jews donated between $13 billion and $14 billion per year to Jewish causes in the early 2020s. Dan Senor, friend of the program and, of course, host of Call Me Back, noted of 33 Jewish individuals on the Forbes 400 list with publicly reported charitable giving, no more than 11% of that went to Jewish causes, meaning they gave most of that to Gentile or or to secular causes. What would you have them do? Would you have them organize and start, for example, if Anduril goes public, buy a whole bunch of Anduril and be seen as being part of the American defense superstructure?
That's exactly right, Hugh. I think it's first of all, I think you can see in that kind of giving exactly what I was talking about earlier. The Jewish community gives, by and large, most of its money to causes that support the broader American community, not just the Jewish community. And that's been an effort on the Jewish community to show that we are grateful for this country, that we are proud American citizens, and that we want to give back all of the bounty that we've been able to gain as a community by living in this country, by being accepted in this country. And I think that will always remain. I think what I'm arguing is we need to show a different kind of a different way of expressing our gratitude. And the Anduril example is a perfect one. Another might be, let's say we're lacking in TNT production. Let's fund a new TNT factory. That's kind of things that are very tangible and about hard power.
I'll be right back for one more segment with Jordan Hirsch. His article is at Sapir. We'll find out during the break if it's online. But the debate between he and Roger Zakim of the Reagan Institute will be next, a week from Monday, December 8th, on Zoom. More about that when we come back. I'm back with Jordan Hirsch. I will bring updates on the shooting of the National Guardsman after the next break. It's interesting, at 17th and 8th, 2 days ago, I ran into Roger Zakim, who you're going to be debating on December 8th about this, Jordan. I don't envy his task in this, but you were kind enough to include the best argument against your argument in your article. I always respect an article that does that. When you write, at the most elemental level, many may worry that by so openly flaunting our financial prowess, a wealth fund would in fact inflame Jew hatred. I expect Roger to make that argument. How are you going to answer that, Jordan?
I expect him to do so too. Well, I think Roger, I don't want to prejudice the debate, but I think he's holding on to a world that I wish still existed but doesn't anymore. My main argument here is that the coin of the realm in today's America isn't anything other than authenticity. I think what makes the anti-institutionalists matter than anything else about the way that Jews engage in political activism in this country isn't that they have power or that they use money to try to get involved in politics. It's that it seems to them that we hide that sometimes behind mediating institutions because it seemed uncouth, and it did back in the day seem uncouth to be openly flaunting your financial prowess in that sort of way, and nobody really did it. But again, I think the culture has shifted, and this is something the Jewish community has to get on top of now or risk falling into the same trap as previous diasporas as far as its level of acceptance in the United States. It is much better to be open, legible, and authentic than it is to try to hide and pretend like it's not us or it's somehow it's the institution. It's better to be out in the open in this modern culture, I think.
So is the argument the best way for Jews to thrive in America is to do so proudly and openly as Jews?
That's exactly right. Couldn't say it better myself. Proudly and openly as Jews, and showing that we really mean it when we say we want to contribute to the revitalization of the United States, that this is our home, and that we're going to invest in it with all of this capital in a way that really matters to Americans right now.
That appeals to me. Now, an aside question, not one you cover. I tend to dismiss anti-Semitism in America as the work of a handful of cranks on the right and a group of dummies on the left. And I doubt that they number 50 people that you would know. They might not even number 20. How serious a problem do you think anti-Semitism is in America?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's complicated. I think if you look at what happened on X over the weekend with a move that I would applaud very much, which is the geographic location that's been applied to all these accounts that you can now see, you see to some degree that a lot of the anti-Jewish sentiment and frankly the anti-American sentiment, these two things go hand in hand almost 100% of the time, is foreign operations. It's people in basements in Pakistan and various Eastern European countries. That said, I do think that there is a legitimate rise in anti-Jewish sentiment on both sides of the aisle. You only have to look at the election of Mayor-elect Mamdani for an example of that, or at least people who don't care so much about the Jewish community in New York, such that they don't mind voting for Mamdani for other reasons. And I think you see some of that, although I think a much greater institutional pushback in the Republican Party against some of those currents in the Republican Party. So I think it's a mixed bag. I think what often happens in these cases, there is something organic. Foreign countries try to jump on it and take advantage of it. They can't do it on their own. So I don't want to say that it's not there. I do think it's a legitimate problem. I don't think it's necessarily just a bunch of cranks. And unfortunately, I think the media ecosystem as it exists today really incentivizes the most extreme voices as clickbait. And I think these foreign countries are taking advantage of it. So it's important for us to push back and be reactive to it.
Jordan, a quick question. It has always been my policy never to mention the cranks I don't give them platforms. I don't want to debate them. I'm not interested in what their point of view is. I view them as ignorant and generally sometimes mentally ill. Do you think, I don't name and shame, in other words, I ignore. Is that the preferred way, or do you prefer to name and shame?
Look, I think lots of different approaches are going to work here. I'm with you, Hugh, and I don't name names in my article. I think the names are less important than the trends, quite frankly. And if it wasn't these several individuals, it might be other people who come and step into the gap. We're dealing with a pattern of history that we're living through as a country right now. And so it makes sense to me that this would be happening in the wake of COVID, in the wake of the collapse of trust in institutions. And so that to me is the more important thing. I think focusing on individuals can be a distraction, but there are going to be people who do try to take these people head on. And I think it's okay to have a multi-pronged approach here.
Jordan Hirsch, thank you for joining me. The Need for a Jewish Sovereign Wealth Fund is the article. If you follow me on X, I have put a link to the article and a link to the registration form for December 8th at noon when Roger Zakim and Jordan debate this with Brett Stevens acting as moderator. It's going to be very interesting to watch that. Have a great Thanksgiving, Jordan. Thanks for spending time on short notice with me. We still are waiting details on the guardsmen and their condition after having been shot midday downtown Washington, D.C. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth made a statement earlier today. Here is that statement.
Very productive meetings, but I want to start by saying after those meetings, myself and my team were notified that 2 National Guardsmen have been shot in Washington, D.C., critically wounded. The shooter shot in a cowardly, dastardly act targeting the best of America, heroes willing to serve in Washington, D.C., serve for people they don't know and they've never met because they love their country and their capital and their community. They were willing to do dangerous things others were not because they love their fellow Americans. Someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. That will only stiffen our resolve. We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down. President Trump will never back down. That's why the American people elected him. America and our warriors, our National Guardsmen.
So that's Secretary Hegseth moments ago. Now, 17th and H, I was there on Monday. I don't recall seeing guardsmen there. There isn't a metro stop near there. There are police almost always posted along with the... It used to be that you could drive in front of the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue and just go straight down Pennsylvania Avenue and make a little jog to the right and head up Pennsylvania Avenue to Congress right after you've gone past Treasury. But the 17th Street is open. That's a north-south venue. East-west is Pennsylvania Avenue. And they have the permanent barriers. They don't go up and down. As far as I know, they don't go up and down. Maybe they do. But you can't run a semi through them. You can't get through them. And most of the old EOB is empty on the side of 17th Street and has been since 9/11. I don't know if they've changed that either, but after 9/11, they emptied that out for fear of truck bombs. And there is just so much in the way of security in and around that part of the Capitol that I can't imagine that happening. I didn't hear you, Adam. Okay, let's go to the press conference. It's beginning.
Are we ready? Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kash Patel, FBI Director. We're here to brief you on the tragic events. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kash Patel, FBI Director, in Washington, D.C., where 2 of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act.
It's not a glitch. They've got two microphones there from two different sources. So go back and let people try and hear what he has to
Federal
say.
and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice. Since this is an assault on a federal law enforcement officer, this will be treated at the federal level as an assault on a federal law enforcement officer. This will be FBI.
So can we go back as it stops? Let's try it again. I know we're getting the echo because they got two microphones there.
The mayor include the Department of assistance in this matter, the Metropolitan Police Department, and their skills in investigating homicides and gun shootings in this city is exceptional. We will work together collaboratively because this is a matter of national security, because it's a matter of pride. President Trump has been informed. We've been in contact with the White House. We will shortchange the American public with no resources to make sure we find and safeguard our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C., and bring anyone responsible for this heinous act of violence to justice. I would lastly like to add to the American public and the world, please send your prayers to those brave warriors who are in critical condition and their families. They are here serving our country. They are here protecting everyday Americans and citizens around the world in our nation's capital. They are the heroes of this day, and we must remember them on this day.
Okay, so they obviously don't have anything yet to tell us, and as anything comes in, I'll continue to bring you the updates from that. If you're just tuning in, two National Guardsmen were shot a block away from the White House. The shooter was also shot and is in critical condition. We do not have an update on the two Guardsmen yet, whether or not they're in critical condition or have in fact died. I'll continue to bring you anything that we've got on that as it comes through. Speaking of Kash Patel, President Trump was on Air Force One today, was asked about Kash Patel, cut number one.
Are you planning to replace Kash Patel as a
No, he's doing a good job.
this week?
Kash Patel? No, he's doing a great job, I think.
I really sometimes wonder where people, I guess they understand that gossip sheets are now original source. They're not. Washington, D.C. is awash in gossip sheets. Every morning they come out. They've got to fill them up with stuff besides birthdays and sightings and things like that. So they make up stuff, and the president just swats it away. He also got asked about Ukrainian security, cut number two.
What about security guarantees and Ukraine?
Well, we're working that out with Europe. Europe will be largely involved in that. We're working that out with Europe. And Europe really wants to see it end if possible.
There were a lot of Republicans who felt that the first 28-point plan was too favorable to Russia. Have you changed that?
Well, that was just a map. All that was is a map. That was not a plan. It was a concept. And from there, they've taken each one of the 28 points, and then you got down to 22 points. A lot of them were solved, and actually very favorably solved. So,
Not again. We'll wait for the sausage, not the sausage making. I want to remind everyone, Angel Tree is sponsoring right now a drive to provide Christmas for children whose mom and or dad are in prison. And they didn't do anything. The kids didn't do anything. They deserve a little Christmas. You can give them a little Christmas right now by calling 888-206-2764, 888-206-2764, or go to HughHewitt.com, and at the top you'll see an Angel Tree banner. You can't miss it. It's got Christmas tree star on it, pile of presents. It says, make Christmas for a day for a child. 888-206-2764, 888-206-2764. A lot of you have asked me, what was I talking about? What was the article I was referring to? Go to the journal Sapir, S-A-P-I-R. Just Google Sapir, and you will find Jordan Hirsch's article on whether or not there ought to be a Jewish sovereign wealth fund, and the debate will be on December 8th, and I will post that. Harley will post the entire 3 segments over at YouTube shortly sometime. Coming up after the top of the hour, Carla Androzik has a brand new book out called Stop Trying. Fabulous book. Great message before you go into a Thanksgiving dinner with family and friends. Stop trying to have a good time. Have a good time. Stop trying to worry about what's going to happen. It's going to happen. Just do what you're going to do. Stop trying to cook the turkey. Cook the turkey. Stop trying to worry about what the appetizer is going to be. Do the appetizer. A pretty easy thing to do. I'm going to double back around in this last short segment of the hour to ask you again to consider a donation to Angel Tree. We have Troy Miller, who's president of the National Association of Religious Broadcasters, talking about why we do this sort of thing.
We have behind that not just an obligation to do it, but a true love for our neighbors and for our fellow people around the community, because it is us being light in the culture and to really spread the gospel. What a better witness we can be than just to reach out and help those people. And a lot of times I've had people do it anonymously too. It's just a great thing that we can do as Christians.
It's a pretty dark day when 2 National Guardsmen are shot a block from the White House. There's no getting around it. It's a very dark day. And I'm just shaking my head because I was right there 2 days ago, and I'm there at least once a week. It's where I go. And I'm astonished, actually. And I have been shown one picture that I'm not going to report on yet. We'll wait for confirmation about it. But I will tell you this. Redeem the day a little bit. Make a donation to a child. Remember, you're not donating to the father and the mother who's in prison. You're donating to the child who's innocent of anything. Usually they're 10, 8, 6. They want a basketball. They want a Barbie. Mom and or dad can't be there. But Angel Tree, working through prison fellowships, gets a handwritten note from mom or dad to the child. They get the present that the child has told the grandma or the aunt or the parent who's not incarcerated that they're really hoping to get. They put the 2 of them together. They add a Bible and a connection to the Angel Tree Prison Fellowship ministry in that area, and you can turn around a life with $30. It costs $30 to serve one child of a prisoner. So if you can give $150, that's remarkably generous of you. You'll be making Christmas for 5 people. If you can do $300, you'll be making Christmas for 10 children. And if you can do a lot more than that, then please do a lot more than that. I'll be right back with Carla Androzek. Don't go anywhere, America. Her new book is called Stop Trying. It's a lot of fun. Add a little bit of joy to a day that's not very joyful. Do you recognize Heart of Stone from Cher's album, so named? The person who sold that song is Carla Androzek. She's the author of a brand new book, Stop Trying, and she joins me now from the West Coast. Hi, Carla. How are you?
I'm so great. How are you doing, Hugh?
I'm good. I had no idea that you had been a song plugger. So since I teased that, would you tell people what a song plugger is and the story behind that song?
Yes. Well, for almost 25 years, I was in music publishing, and my job was to give all of the recording artists that did not write their own material hit songs. You would hope that you would get one of the 10 slots on an album to be on the album, and then of course be the single that was released to radio. And so I did that for, oh my gosh, Earth, Wind and Fire, Huey Lewis, Barbra Streisand, Mariah Carey, Christina Aguilera, many, many artists. Cher is such a great story because there was no way to get to the guy that worked with her. He was an A&R executive, almost as famous as the people he represented. His
John
name was
Kalodner, right?
Correct, yeah. John Kalodner. And I called over to Geffen because they had Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses and all these great artists. And I had my hands on this hot little song for 24 hours. I was given an exclusive. And I said, I will deliver you a hit, to my company. So they said, your time starts now, get out the door and go get us a great cover. And John Kalodner, his secretary wouldn't set up the meeting. She said, he won't see you. And I said, will you tell him I'm on my way over right now? And I marched myself into the office and his door was wide open. And I think he was like kind of afraid, like, who is this person that's going to barge in here? And he put the song right in onto the cassette player. That's how long ago it was. And he said, okay, we're going to deliver you a hit. And he gave it to Cher. And I believe that album, and it was not only on the record and not only a single, it was the artwork, it was a video. It was a huge hit for her that enabled her to have a resurgence of a U.S. international career. So that's a great story that I'm so proud of.
Well, when you write your next book, and I think you should, I think you ought to write about the industry because you only give us a few tidbits in Stop Trying. And I want to get to the heart of Stop Trying because a lot of people are in their cars right now trying very hard to do something, which is get somewhere. They told themselves they were going to try and leave early today, and they didn't leave early. So we're going to talk directly to the people who said they were going to try and leave early today, and they did not leave early, and they're stuck in traffic as a result. But I'm fascinated by that career. I had no idea you had done that, Carla. I had no idea, so it was fascinating. Let's start at the end, page 196 of Stop Trying. For me, for Carla Ondrasik, everything begins with gratitude. Do you want to explain that?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's the first thing that we should do before we're asking anything from the universe, anything that we want. We have to acknowledge where we are and be grateful for the opportunity to even desire more, to have a better job, to be in a better relationship, to be the good person that we want to be. Gratitude, you have to start there and be so thankful for the abilities that we have, and then you can ask for whatever else that you want. It all begins
And the
with
reason
that.
I'm so glad, I wanted to start there because it is Thanksgiving Eve. Some people approach it with joy. Some people approach it with apprehension, but if they approach it with gratitude and they start thinking now about gratitude, they will have the gratitude on hand when it comes time to say the prayer and go around the table tomorrow, as many people do. Next thing I wanted to make sure this is a great book, by the way, fabulous work. Stop Trying. It will help everyone, but especially procrastinators, but it will help everyone. Do your best is a disservice to kids. When we tell kids to do their best, it's a disservice. Unpack that for us, Carla.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, right? So we were taught to try by our parents, and their parents taught them to try. Try harder, try your best, try again, just give it a try. So when you tell your kid, and they're struggling in math and they have a test coming up, and you say, just try your best or try to study harder, what they're hearing is that's an option. Try to do it is an option. It's optional. Do your best. Do study longer. Now you have a concrete suggestion with an action that you can take. And basically trying is half-hearting any effort. It's a half-hearted effort or a half-hearted attempt. So the kid that's going to try their best, maybe they're going to study 30 minutes more and then get back on the computer and start playing games. But the kid that says, I'm going to do my best, they are studying on the bus going to school. They're staying up and studying. They're not getting on their Game Boy or they're not playing computer games. They are going to do their best. So with that comes a certain set of actions that you must take. So doing and trying are different. And I just want to also say that when we ask our kids to do their best, we don't expect them to get the A every time. We just expect them to give themselves the best possible advantage. And even if that kid still gets a C+ or a C- after they've done their best, they walk away with their head held high, with confidence and knowing that they did their best. That's the prize, that at least they know they didn't half-heart it, they did not study, they did their best.
What I came away from Stop Trying is that when you tell people to try to something, it's a permission structure not to succeed, not to do it. It's actually just try is a way of saying it doesn't really matter, which leads me to my next must cover. Never say, we will try and make it. When you get an event invitation, never say it. And that will change me going forward because I hate to say no to people, but you kind of diagnose that in this book. I really hate to say no to people, but you really need to learn to say no to people. And you need to say, we will try and make it. No, 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 no. That's a bad thing. How long did it take you to figure that one out, Carla?
When I was in the music business, because I know you like talking about that, one of the things that, when I discovered John Ondrasik, Five for Fighting, my husband, and I had to set up showcases for him with record companies. And what I noticed was the big executives, the presidents of companies, the high-level attorneys, they never said to me, I'll try to make it, Carla. It was, I will be there or I won't be there. The people that are performing at the top of their game, they don't have try in their language. They know how to say no. They know how to manage their time. They know how to prioritize their goals and what they want to do. So for me, whenever somebody would say, yeah, we'll try to come to your showcase, it was horrible. I would get sick to my stomach because I had a finite amount of time. I set up a studio and, I had everything lined up. And if the people that said they'd try to show up didn't, then it was all for nothing. I needed definites. So when I hear someone say, I've been on I'm on boards, I'm the head of the HOA, I volunteered at the kids' school. And if a parent would say, Carla, I'll try to, show up with the coffee and donuts at 9, I'm like, will you be there or won't you be there? Because I need someone to commit to being there.
I love this so much, and so many people can use it in their organization. You ought to just pass it out to everyone. 2 more things we've got to get to. I helped write a book on General Eisenhower. I've never heard of the Eisenhower Matrix until Stop Trying. Would you describe the Eisenhower Matrix to people? Because boy, is it powerful.
The Eisenhower Matrix. Well, he was very well known for his organizational abilities. And what it is if you say you're moving, that's the example I use in the book, and you have so many things to do, you're overwhelmed. What do I do? I'm trying to pack. I'm trying to schedule this. That's where all the try comes in when we're overwhelmed. So the Eisenhower Matrix is things that you delegate. So this is a delete. I do not need to do this. I can delegate this. This is something I have to do immediately. This is something that can wait till last. So it's just a square with 4 boxes. You can download it. You can look it up on the internet. I have a PDF if you go to my website, and you can download that. And it really is an incredible organizational tool.
It is. What's the website? We have a minute, Carla.
It's stop-trying.com.
Stop-trying.com. Finally, Try Babies, page 133. Always complaining about their current situation. I love that. We all have Try Babies. What should we tell them?
We'll never call them a try baby. That's first. You do not want to agree with them. They're the try baby. They're like, oh, I'm trying and I can't do this. I can't do that. The thing you do is you offer them. You say, well, is there something you can do? Offer a suggestion. Can I help you? You don't want to give them what they need to keep going.
Carla Ondrazik, Stop Trying. Wonderful book, especially about gratitude. For me, everything begins with gratitude. I'm grateful for Stop Trying. Stop-trying.com. Stop-trying.com. And I put the link over at my X account as well. Happy Thanksgiving, Carla.
Kaufman Police Department. At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. At this time...
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. That's the very latest we know. We do not know the identity of the shooter. We do not know the condition other than critical or worse of the guardsman. I'm joined by Abe Greenwald on the Hugh Hewitt Show, executive editor of Commentary Magazine. Always jarring, Abe, when it happens very close. And I'm near that corner 2-3 times a week. Always jarring when that happens in 2:15 in the afternoon. But it's not really that unusual in America, is it?
Well, we seem to have entered a new age of ideologically motivated assassination attempts. If you look just over the past year, who's being targeted? All sorts. If you go back a little beyond the past year, you've got the attempts on Donald Trump's life. You've got the United Healthcare CEO. You've got
Brian Hughes.
Brian Hughes. That's right. You've got the Charlie Kirk, and so now they're going after National Guardsmen. I'm not surprised. Sadly, we are in a very dangerous age of ideological violence.
You know, Abe, I used to tell, you're too young. I used to tell people, it's not that bad. I can remember 1968. My cousin was at Kent State, 40 minutes from where I grew up. And Bobby Kennedy, I remember waking up to the sound of the news report. Well, we are. We're back in 68 to 72. The bombs aren't going off yet, but give Antifa time and we'll have the weather underground. What does this do to the politics of the country, if anything? Does it shift it right like it did in 68 for Nixon?
That's an interesting question that is yet to be, I think, resolved or yet to be foreseeable. I think some of this has to do with how the liberal establishment responds to these things. We saw after the assassination of Charlie Kirk that while there was talk about lowering the temperature generally, there wasn't much in the way of accepting on the liberal left that this is coming from their side for the most part. Yeah, I think that is going to turn off a lot of people.
In terms of the conversation about turning down the heat, that's not actually possible on on a collective basis to do. It's up to individuals to stop that. But I have a real question that I struggle with. We have a lot of haters and a lot of crazy people in the country, in Congress and out of Congress. There's a bell curve. On the left and the right, the farthest 5% are nuts. In the commentariat, the farthest 5% are nuts. I never name them. I don't invite them on. I'm not interested in the clicks. I don't talk about them on X. I don't retweet them in order to own them and to denounce them. Is that the wrong way to go about it? Ought they to be named and shamed, or ought they to be ignored?
You know, as I was listening to you say that, I was thinking, that sounds admirable. Maybe I should try it. Because the truth is, I'm not sure. I have different approaches, depending on sort of my mood, how much something in particular gets under my skin, how good of a point I think I have to make in opposition to one of them. But at least when it comes to X, when it comes to social media, I do tend to call them out, and that could be a mistake. That could be amplifying their message as much as denouncing it. It could be counterproductive. I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. We're in a different world.
I'd love to hear the commentary podcast people talk about that, because you're all very smart and you're up to speed with everyone I'm talking about. You know everybody I'm talking about.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes you name them and sometimes you don't. But I'm afraid I don't want to add one marginal click to anybody. On the other hand, William F. Buckley named and shamed people right out of the Republican Party on 2 occasions, and it was good that he did. So it's a
But, you know, he
balance.
also he managed to also do that with sort of backroom meetings and things of that nature. That's effective, as well as, of course, publicly naming and shaming. But there were real things happening behind the scenes that enabled him to say, push the Birchers out, and so on. Agreements that he managed to solidify to make those things happen. It's kind of a trap, I think, for traditional conservatives, because the moment you respond to any of the provocateurs, they use that as evidence of your hysteria, of your being from a long dead political age, and their followers get a big kick out of it.
That last part, I learned the hard way. I responded to Seth Rogen and got in an argument with, he's never going to win the spelling bee, right? He's an actor. And not a very well-read one. He makes clay pots. But I learned that there are a million people that love Seth Rogen. And if you if you throw yourself into the funhouse, you're going to get bounced around. So I just ignore people like that now. But I do wonder whether or not, especially electeds, when they're not elected, I really don't want to pay attention to them. But elected people, we might, the knucklehead caucus, Matt Gaetz, I couldn't have been harder on Matt Gaetz because he was such a moron. But most of them I ignore. What's your general view of the weirdos?
It's so strange that I spend a good deal of the portion of my day that I pour over the news trying to figure out who is genuinely a little off, who is pretending to be a little off for profit or popularity, who seems to be veering toward veering off the reservation. In truth, in all honesty, mental illness is playing a much larger role in our day-to-day politics than it ever has in my memory.
Amen. That's what I think. I think we got a lot of people who have lost balance. Okay, quick exit. I spent almost an hour with Jordan Hirsch on this article from Sapir, The Need for a Jewish Sovereign Wealth Fund. He's against giving money to establishmentarian causes by wealthy Jews. And he wants Jews to concentrate their money in a sovereign wealth fund and buy hard power, which is Anduril goes public, you buy a lot of Anduril. You got a minute, Abe. What do you think of that idea?
I think I suspect I'm generally in agreement with Jordan's thrust. It's something we've discussed in pages of commentary a lot. That Jewish giving, Jewish philanthropy, which is exorbitant in this country, has generally gone to everything from museums to hospitals to whatever else, and at the very least, a lot more of it needs to be concentrated in things that are there to protect the Jewish community and advance Jewish life in this country. If we won't do it, who will?
Amen to that. Abe Greenwald, read his morning newsletter, subscribe to Commentary, listen to the podcast, the funniest and best informed podcast. Eliana Johnson is a wonderful addition. Go to anywhere you get your podcast and just get the Commentary podcast 5 days a week. I wish it was up earlier, Abe, but that's not your fault. Keep saying the same thing. I have no additional new hard facts about the shooting at 17th and I today. Sarah C. Bedford is the political investigative reporter extraordinaire over at Washington Examiner. And Sarah, I doubt you do either, but do you?
The last that I'd seen is that President Trump had Truth Socialed about it. He said that the person who did it seems to also be in critical condition along with the victims, but that either way, the shooter would pay a very heavy price. So obviously Donald Trump has been briefed, but yeah, just breathlessly waiting for updates like you and everyone else.
Now, 17th and I is not exactly an unprotected part of town. It's 2 blocks from the White House. It's pretty amazing. Sarah, I want to ask you about the 7th Congressional District special election. President Trump was urging people to vote for Matt Van Epps. I'm on in Nashville and throughout Tennessee. I hope people do. It's a ruby red district. But why are Democrats elevating Afton Ben? She seems a little bit nutty.
Well, it seems like this was a bit of a sleeper. No one in really Washington, New York media circles was really paying attention to this race up until this week because it is such a reliably red district. It's a district that Donald Trump won by 22 percentage points just a year ago, that Republicans had counted safely in their corner. But there must be some polling out there that shows that Democrats have an advantage here. And they have done pretty well in the off-year special elections and the regular off-year elections that we saw in New Jersey and Virginia and New York. And obviously Republicans are shaken because you have Vice President J.D. Vance potentially planning a visit down there. You have Donald Trump weighing in. You have millions of dollars pouring into this race. Clearly the margin there is closer for comfort for Republicans.
Yeah, I think it's good to shake the bell and ring the chimes. Let me ask you about the numbers in the House after Representative Green retires on January 6th. When can they hold a special election in Georgia, and how quickly will that happen?
That is a great question. I'm actually not sure if that's something that Brian Kemp sets or if the state constitution sets that up in a bit of a strange way. You know, word on the street in Washington is that the way that Florida special elections work, for example, is part of why Republican leadership is really reluctant to walk away from Corey Mills, who is a really embattled member, because that's not a special election that they could just snap right away. In Georgia, the timing will be really crucial because Mike Johnson has such a small margin already. And then imagine if Democrats manage to pull out an upset in this Tennessee special election in the 2nd District in Tennessee when nobody was really paying attention to this. And it's right after Thanksgiving. So if you have really motivated Democratic voters, that's a possibility for them. Mike Johnson's math gets really, really difficult in that case.
Is there any truth to the gossip sheets that other members are thinking about throwing it in? They passed the one big beautiful bill. Not much else is going to happen between now and the election. I don't know that they can get a reconciliation through, as promised, a second reconciliation. If they could, it would give people a reason to stick around, but I haven't heard that argued yet, and I can't really imagine comprehensive healthcare reform happening. Can you?
No, Republicans had a golden opportunity years ago during Trump's first term when repeal and replace actually had meat on the bones, and they couldn't get it together then. Now, when there's not even really an outline of a plan, it's hard to imagine them getting it over to the finish line. And you have a lot of expectations among the rank and file that Republicans are heading into the minority in less than a year now. So some Republican members of the House, especially ones that don't have ambitions for leadership or higher office, this might be a good off-ramp for them because they don't want to spend however many years in the minority after this.
Now, I will be at ALEC next week, the American Legislative Exchange Council, where 1,000 state legislators get together, and I'm going to hammer all of them on doing the redistricting thing the way California did and Texas tried to. Are any other states, to your knowledge, going to redraw their maps comprehensively?
Well, North Carolina is trying right now. Indiana, it's been a little bit rockier. But for Republicans, this wasn't really an item on their agenda prior to a few months ago. So you have some reluctance in state legislatures that, do things a certain way. They don't like to be pushed into deviating from their sort of legislative plans. But this is a real issue for Republicans. They have more juice in that lemon, to borrow a phrase from J.D. Vance, who described it this way. There's more juice in that lemon to squeeze out for Republicans than Democrats, who have already really gerrymandered their states, the ones that they control. They have a trifecta in the state governments. They've gerrymandered those states to the fullest extent possible, obviously with the exception of California, which is doing it now. Republicans have a lot more runway for that.
We got to win in the courts for Texas. Florida's got to get moving in a hurry. There are possible 5 pickups there. I think Louisiana has 1 or 2 where there's a trifecta. We'll find out. Sarah C. Bedford, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you for being a guest every week. We appreciate it here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Gloomy day in D.C. Many of you are stuck on the road somewhere, but say a prayer for the National Guardsmen, who I hope are fighting for their lives, and even for the shooter. That he lives and stands trial. No information released on him yet. Here's what the D.C. police officer had to say earlier at the one briefing that's official. The Kash Patel one had bad audio. We can't play it.
Metropolitan Police Department. At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into the custody. At this time, as the director mentioned, the National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. DC Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital. Madam Mayor?
The local hospital is GW. It is where Ronald Reagan was treated. It is among the greatest emergency rooms in the world with world-class care, whether it's resident. I remember my friend Del Wilbur told me, he wrote the book Rawhide Down, the minute-by-minute tick-tock of Ronald Reagan the day he was shot, that the thing that saved Ronald Reagan's life is when they got the call that the President of the United States had been shot and was coming in, or appeared to have been wounded and was hurting, was coming in. They didn't know he'd been shot yet. The head of the hospital called the senior resident and said, treat him like any other patient. Don't wait for Dr. Bones to show up. And if you've seen the movie, the 4-part series, Death by Lightning, President Garfield of Ohio died not because of the bullet. It had lodged behind his pancreas and fatty tissue, but because of sepsis that the learned man brought with him, who dismissed everybody else as being quacks as to the new theory of science. And I'm just hoping they had the good resident on staff and ready to go to work on the guardsman today and on the shooter, that he might stand trial for his heinous act. The judges and the prosecutors in this country have got to start to jail people who assault officers. By assault officers, I mean imminent fear of an unpermitted touching. Battery is where you actually touch someone. It's a crime in every jurisdiction. It's a crime under federal law. You may not assault someone. Put them in imminent fear of an unpermitted touching. It's also a civil violation, and you can sue. The damages typically aren't there. But it is time to start rounding up and prosecuting by the scores, by the hundreds, by the thousands, people who threaten police, guardsmen, first responders, ICE agents, anyone in law enforcement, border patrol. A nation of laws does not allow that to go unpunished. It's got to end. Let me play for you today Representative Mike Quigley on CNN responding to the 6 morons who suggested the President of the United States was issuing illegal orders. Cut number 5.
Republicans say that the Democrats who did this, they knew what they were doing, saying that they were wanting to create a political stunt and to get a response, and now they just don't like the response. They still have not articulated what exactly they think could be illegal that they want service members to push back against. Do you think they should articulate what they think is illegal as part of this if they're going to put this video out?
Look, it's hard to know all the scenarios the president could create. The fact of the matter is there have been court rulings in just the last week in 3 or 4 instances in which the president has violated the law. Would anyone be surprised? And I talk to my Republican colleagues that the president does something or orders something that is illegal.
Again, he had no answer. That a president loses a case at the district court level doesn't mean anything until the appeals court and possibly SCOTUS review. It means they lost at that. Congressman Quigley is a Democrat from Chicago. I wish they would have followed him up. What are you talking about? What has he ordered that's illegal? I'm unaware of an illegal order that he has given. He has been told he may not deploy National Guards by a district court judge. Doesn't make it illegal. It means that he's been enjoined from doing something, but that's not what the 6 were talking about. And it is this kind of idiocy that's infecting the airwaves everywhere. And it's just got to just stop making stuff up and doing political stunt theater. Let me close this segment by reminding you that we are raising money for Angel Tree. We do it every year. We sponsor this campaign with Prison Fellowship. We ask you to please step forward and donate $30, $60, $90. Every $30 takes care of one child. They get one present, maybe 2 with $30, depending on what they ask for. Barbies aren't that expensive. They get it from mom and or dad who is in jail. They get a note and they get a Bible. More importantly, they get a connection to a volunteer from Angel Tree and the Ministry of Prison Fellowship. Let's give a listen to the head of the National Association of Christian Broadcasters, Troy Miller.
We have behind that not just an obligation to do it, but a true love for our neighbors and for our fellow people around the community, because it is us being light in the culture and to really spread the gospel. What a better witness we can be than just to reach out and help those people. And a lot of times I've had people do it anonymously too. It's just a great thing that we can do as Christians.
A lot of people do it on their church patio, and thank you. I'm not trying to preempt that. We appreciate when you do that. But if you're thinking about doing it, you can do it right now by going to HughHewitt.com or by using the phone number as well, 888. All right, always starts with 888. I want to make sure I get it right. 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. One more time, 888-206-2764. I screwed it up. 888-206-2764. I'll be right back. Be patient if you're in traffic anywhere in the country. It's going to be bad. It's going to stay bad. You're not going to get there any faster by riding the bumper of the person in front of you. A short, clear distance is a good thing. It's a sound concept. Stick with it.